Welcome to the Deep Dive, your shortcut to being genuinely well-informed, packed with surprising facts, and, well, hopefully just enough humor to keep you hooked.
Wonderfully.
Today, we're plunging into something really fascinating and I think deeply personal. Have you ever had that feeling, that sense that parts of your personality, maybe the way you react instinctively or how you engage with people, aren't quite authentically you?
Right, that feeling of slight disconnect.
Exactly. What if those ingrained behaviors are actually like a carefully built shield, a veil, maybe
Yeah.
developed unconsciously to navigate a tough past?
It's a profound idea, yeah. And it really hits home when you start looking closer.
It does.
And it's amazing how common this is, this sort of phenomenon. Even if we don't have words for it or aren't consciously aware of it,
Yeah.
we all adapt, obviously.
Yeah.
But when those adaptations come from surviving trauma, they can really dig in deep, creating this kind of persistent internal conflict, maybe feeling a bit off or disconnected. Lots of people live with that low hum of tension underneath everything.
That brings us right to the core of today's deep dive then. We're exploring this theoretical idea, this framework called trauma's veil.
Right.
And the basic idea is that our innate personality preferences, let's call it our natural MBTI for this discussion, can get overshadowed or masked by what we'll call expressed MBTI traits.
Okay.
And these expressed traits, they're essentially sophisticated survival strategies, things we learn to do, ways we learn to be, often in response to trauma or really challenging environment.
Yeah. Adaptive strategies.
Now, super important clarification right away. This is absolutely not a clinical diagnosis. We're not here putting labels on anyone.
Crucial point. Very important.
Think of it more like a lens, a way to understand ourselves, maybe understand others with a bit more compassion, perhaps more insight.
Exactly. It's about seeing the patterns, right? Seeing the why behind certain behaviors, not just the what.
Yeah, the why.
And, connecting this up, this framework can be really validating.
How so?
Well, it helps us see that behaviors that might feel, I don't know, burdensome or confusing now, they likely served a really crucial protective purpose once.
Ah, right. They were necessary.
Absolutely. Essential for survival even. They show incredible resilience, actually. Recognizing that origin, that could be a huge step towards self-acceptance.
Yeah.
And maybe towards healing, too.
Okay, so for you listening, what's our mission today? We want to really unpack this split.
Yeah, get into the details.
We're going to journey through 4 fundamental personality dimensions, sort of the building blocks of how we interact with the world.
The MBTI dichotomies.
Right. And look at how specific kinds of childhood trauma might force this split, this divergence between who someone naturally is and the persona they learn to express.
It's like a roadmap.
Hopefully. A roadmap to maybe help you recognize these dynamics, whether that's in your own experience or maybe just in how you see the world and the people in it.
And understanding these splits, really getting them, is often the crucial first step towards integration, really, towards a more authentic way of being. It's not about getting rid of parts of yourself.
Yeah.
It's about understanding where they came from and maybe loosening the grip of those old survival patterns that aren't needed anymore.
Right. Moving from automatic reactions to more conscious choices.
Exactly. This knowledge can be empowering that way.
Definitely. And look, this is complex stuff. It's sensitive. Our goal here is clarity, empowerment, not to overwhelm anyone.
Absolutely.
Because the journey of healing, of reintegrating these masked parts, it's absolutely possible. And it often starts right here with this kind of deep, compassionate understanding.
Well said.
So let's start by laying out that core framework clearly. Natural MBTI versus expressed MBTI.
Okay.
Let's ground ourselves first in natural MBTI. What do we mean by that? Think of it as your innate way of being, your preferred way, like your core operating system.
That's a good analogy.
Yeah? How you naturally gain energy, how you prefer to process information, the sort of default settings for making decisions, how you naturally like to structure your life or not structure.
Right. It's the baseline you, the you when you're most comfortable, most authentic, before the big external pressures or, difficult experiences really shape things.
The factory settings.
Exactly. Like a computer's factory settings.
Yeah.
Or its default OS. And it's really important to stress this isn't about skill or intelligence.
Right. Not about ability.
No. It's about inherent preferences. How do you prefer to interact? How do you prefer to process things? Some people genuinely recharge best alone with quiet reflection.
Introverts, typically.
Right. While others feel most alive, most energized when they're out doing things with people, engaging externally.
Extroverts.
Exactly. It's just their preferred mode, their energetic blueprint, if you like. Preference, not competence. That's key.
Okay, so that's the natural core. Now, contrasting that, we have the expressed MBTI, and this is the collection of behaviors, preferences, maybe even attitudes that a person actually shows the world, the persona they operate from day to day.
And here's where it gets really interesting, and I think quite eye-opening for a lot of people.
Yeah.
In a trauma context, these expressed preferences often aren't a conscious choice.
Wow.
They're deeply ingrained survival adaptations, almost automatic. And they can flat out contradict that natural preference we just talked about, which leads to this huge, often really exhausting internal conflict.
Like fighting yourself.
Exactly. Like driving with one foot on the brake, one on the accelerator, that constant internal tug of war.
Wow.
And that mismatch between who you naturally are and who you learned you had to be to stay safe, that's where that deep sense of exhaustion comes from.
Right. Feeling out of sync.
Yeah, or feeling like you're always playing a role, always performing. It's incredibly draining because you're constantly fighting your own energy, your own natural flow, always on guard.
Okay, that framework is really helpful. So with that foundation, let's dive into the 4 core dichotomies and see how these splits actually play out.
Let's do it.
We'll start with the first one. Extraversion, E, versus introversion, I. Most people have heard these terms, but just quickly, this is about where you direct and get your energy right.
Fundamentally, yes. Extroverts are energized by the external world, people, action, stimuli. Introverts are energized by their internal world, reflection, quiet thoughts.
It's not just shy versus outgoing.
No, definitely not. It's about where your battery recharges. And trauma. Trauma can really twist this natural preference. It can force someone into a mode that's totally against their core energy needs.
Okay, so let's look at the first scenario, the forced introvert. This is someone who's naturally an extrovert.
Right, naturally energized by connection, by being out there.
But because of trauma, they learn to express as an introvert. How does that happen? What kind of situations lead to that?
Well, typically it happens when the external world is consistently seen as threatening or overwhelming.
Right.
Or just plain punishing.
Oh.
Take something like harsh criticism or emotional abuse.
Yeah.
If a child is constantly told they're too loud, too much, annoying.
Or their excitement is shut down.
Exactly. If their natural exuberance is treated as a problem, they learn very quickly. Outward expression leads to pain or shame or danger.
So they associate expression with negative consequences.
Precisely. Their innate drive to connect gets met with punishment, not joy. So survival mode kicks in. They retreat inward, stifle that vibrancy, make themselves smaller, quieter, unseen. It's safer.
That makes sense. What else?
Another big one is chronic neglect. Imagine a naturally extroverted child, wired to seek connection, attention.
Reaching out.
Yeah, reaching out. But their bids, their smiles, their cries, trying to engage are met with nothing, indifference, an empty space.
Oh, wow.
The external world, which should be their source of energy and connection, becomes this void. There's no feedback. No mirroring, no one meeting their needs.
So they turn inward.
They have to. To find any stimulation, any self-soothing, it's a really heartbreaking adaptation, searching for energy inside when the outside offers none.
And I guess a chaotic or a violent home would do this too.
Absolutely. If the external environment is unpredictable, volatile, dangerous, any outward action, any noise could trigger something awful.
Right, danger.
The safest strategy becomes invisibility, silence. Withdrawals into preference, then, it's an imperative. Stillness, quiet, retreating inside that becomes the only reliable protection.
So for this forced introvert, the internal conflict is this constant energy drain.
Pretty much, yeah. A chronic energy deficit. They're wired to crave external engagement. That's their natural system. But experience has taught them it's dangerous or pointless.
So there's this deep yearning that can't be met safely.
Exactly. It never quite gets satisfied in the way their system needs.
What does that feel like inside for someone living like that?
Internally, it can feel like a gnawing restlessness or persistent boredom or just profound loneliness.
Trapped inside.
Yet their inner world, which isn't their natural energy source, can feel like a prison. They're battling their own nature. This can show up as chronic anxiety or a low-grade depression or even really elaborate maladaptive daydreaming.
Trying to simulate the outside world inside.
Desperately trying, yeah. But it never fully satisfies. It's like trying to quench thirst with salt water. It just makes you more depleted in the long run.
And externally, how might we see this?
Externally, they might look shy, reserved, maybe socially anxious, the quiet one.
But maybe not always.
Right. Because in specific situations where they feel genuinely safe, maybe with really trusted friends, or in a particular setting, they might suddenly binge on social interaction.
Like letting it all out.
Yeah, become super gregarious, talk really fast, trying to make up for lost time almost.
Right.
But then,
Rash.
exactly, they get quickly overwhelmed or totally exhausted. Because those social muscles are both desperate for use and deeply conditioned by fear. It's this constant, exhausting push-pull.
Okay, let's flip that coin. The forced extrovert. A natural introvert who expresses extroversion due to trauma. This seems less intuitive at first. How does someone who naturally recharges inward get pushed outward?
It usually happens when survival literally depends on constantly monitoring, managing, and engaging with the external world, specifically the emotions and moods of others.
Okay, like what?
Think about parentification or enmeshment, where the child is forced to be the emotional regulator for a volatile or needy parent.
The child takes care of the parent's feelings.
Right. Their own inner world, their need for quiet reflection gets completely ignored because all their energy has to be focused outward. Scanning the parent, managing their feelings, trying to keep things stable or safe.
That's a huge burden.
It's a total role reversal. The child sacrifices their inner landscape for the parent's emotional needs.
What about narcissistic parents?
Similar dynamic, often more intense. The child learns their worth, their safety, any affection is totally conditional on their performance, on reflecting glory back onto the parent, making the parent look good, feel good.
Oh.
This creates a compulsive need for external validation. The child becomes a performer, a chameleon. Their natural introverted tendency to observe quietly is crushed by the urgent need to perform, to be seen in the right way, just to get basic needs met or avoid punishment. Their whole existence becomes an act.
So the split here is inherently exhausting. A natural introvert forced to perform extroversion constantly drains their battery.
Completely. Perpetual exhaustion. They're forced into social engagement that depletes them rather than replenishing them like true extroversion would.
What's the internal experience of that?
Often a profound sense of being a fraud, an actor playing a part they didn't write. There's this huge dissonance between their authentic inner self and the energetic persona they project.
Feeling disconnected from themselves.
Deeply. A sense of emptiness, maybe even numbness when the performance is over. And they have this intense, almost desperate need for solitude to recover.
But can they get it?
Often, no. The very dynamics that force them into this role make it incredibly hard to get that vital alone time. It just perpetuates the exhaustion cycle.
And externally, how does this person show up?
Externally, they can actually seem incredibly charismatic, charming, socially skilled.
Because they've had to be.
Exactly. They've become experts at reading and responding to others, social chameleons, out of necessity.
But there's a cost.
A huge cost.
Yeah.
Often leads to severe burnout, chronic fatigue, and a real inability to form deep, authentic connections.
Why?
Because their social self is a defense mechanism. It's a facade, not a genuine expression. They're so busy managing the external world, performing, that they lose touch with their own inner compass, their true self.
That's a really powerful picture of the cost. Okay, let's shift to the second dichotomy. Sensing, S, versus intuition, N.
Yeah.
This is about how we perceive information, right?
Right. How you primarily gather data from the world. Sensors focus on the concrete, the tangible through the five senses. It's about what is right now.
And intuitives.
Intuitives focus more on patterns, possibilities, abstract meanings, underlying connections, more what could be, or the meaning behind the surface.
So it's about where you naturally focus your attention when taking things in.
Exactly. Empirical data versus inferred possibilities. And again, trauma can seriously warp this natural preference, forcing someone into a mode that feels really unnatural and uncomfortable.
So how does a natural, intuitive, someone imaginative, big picture focused get forced into becoming hyper-focused on the concrete? Become a forced sensor?
This usually happens when survival demands an intense, moment-by-moment focus on the immediate physical environment.
Like in physical abuse.
Exactly. Physical abuse or chronic violence. The child must become hyper-aware of subtle physical cues. A footstep pattern, a change in tone, a clenched fist, even a sudden silence.
These aren't abstract ideas.
No, they're immediate signals of potential harm. The abstract what if is a luxury they can't afford. It's a distraction from danger. The concrete what is right now is about immediate safety. Their brain gets wired to constantly scan for sensory data to predict and avoid harm.
What about instability or poverty?
That too. Chronic instability, pervasive poverty.
Yeah.
The focus is relentlessly on immediate tangible needs. Where's the next meal? Are we safe tonight? Do we have shelter?
Basic survival.
Right. This constant need to manage immediate physical reality wires the brain to prioritize concrete facts over future possibilities or abstract ideas. There's just no mental space, no luxury for what could be when what is so critical and uncertain.
So for a natural intuitive who thrives on imagination and connections, this must feel incredibly stifling, trapped in the concrete.
Totally stifling. Internally, what can happen, tragically, is they turn that natural pattern recognition ability towards catastrophizing.
Instead of seeing possibilities, they see threats.
Exactly. Constantly imagining worst-case scenarios built from tiny bits of sensory data. They might feel deeply bored by the mundane, misunderstood because their intuitive insights are suppressed, and just disconnected from their creative core. That expansive part of them gets locked away as unsafe or irrelevant.
A loss of inner space.
A huge loss.
And externally, how might this forced sensor look?
They might seem really anxious, jumpy, obsessively focused on details. They can appear practical, grounded, but it's an anxious practicality, born of hypervigilance, not comfort.
Hard to relax.
Extremely hard.
Yeah.
Because their intuition, instead of exploring freely, is now stuck constantly trying to link sensory data to potential threats, making peace elusive. Every odd sound, every unexpected shift becomes a potential danger signal, always on low alert.
That sounds exhausting. Okay, now the forced intuitive. A natural sensor is someone who trusts the tangible world, forced to operate on gut feelings or abstract interpretations. That sounds deeply disorienting.
It really is fundamentally disorienting. This usually happens when that tangible sensory reality is systematically undermined, made unreliable, or deliberately distorted.
Gaslighting.
Gaslighting is the classic, most insidious example, or severe psychological abuse. The child's perceptions are constantly denied. That didn't happen. You're imagining things. You're too sensitive.
Invalidating their senses.
Systematically. They learn they literally cannot trust what they see and hear. Their senses become unreliable witnesses. So to survive, they have to develop this powerful sixth sense and expressed intuition.
To read between the lines.
Yeah, exactly. To read hidden meanings, unspoken truths, subtle power dynamics, just to figure out what's really going on beneath the deceptive surface. It's this constant, brutal erosion of trust in their own senses, forcing them into the abstract, the inferred, the uncertain, to find safety.
So when a natural sensor who trusts the concrete has that trust shattered, it must create chaos inside. Confusion, self-doubt, feeling ungrounded.
That's precisely the lived experience. Perpetually ungrounded, intensely anxious, disoriented, because their fundamental way of knowing the world, their senses, has been so thoroughly undermined.
Second-guessing everything.
Constantly, leading to this feeling of living in a fog. Nothing feels certain, nothing's trustworthy at face value, and those gut feelings they're forced to rely on. They're usually laced with fear, paranoia, distrust. Not the creative exploration of a natural intuitive. It's intuition born from hypervigilance, not curiosity.
And how does that manifest externally?
Externally, they might seem paranoid, overly suspicious, always reading between the lines for hidden threats, even when things seem fine.
Because surface reality has been proven deceptive.
Right. They might struggle to trust simple facts, direct statements, always looking for the deeper, maybe darker meaning they can seem in their head, lost in speculation. But again, it's not a natural preference for abstraction. It's a defense mechanism, a compulsive search for safety, because reality itself was distorted, always searching for the hidden truth.
Truly eye-opening. The psychological toll is immense. Okay, let's move to our third dichotomy. Thinking, T, versus feeling, F. This is about how we make decisions, right?
Yeah, the criteria we prioritize. Thinkers tend to prioritize objective logic, impartial principles, detached analysis.
And feelers?
Feelers prioritize personal values, relationship harmony, the impact of decisions on people.
So logic versus values, essentially, or principles versus people.
That's a good shorthand, yeah. It's a fundamental difference in decision-making criteria. And trauma can force someone into a mode that deeply clashes with their natural preference here, too.
Okay, let's take the forced thinker. A natural feeler, someone inclined towards empathy, values who's compelled to express thinking. When does this happen?
Usually in environments where emotions are punished, or invalidated, or seen as dangerous.
Like
in families with harsh criticism, extreme perfectionism, constant judgment, where any show of emotion, vulnerability, sadness, even inappropriate joy is treated as weakness, a flaw, a failure.
So expressing feelings leads to negative consequences.
Exactly. The child learns logic, detachment, emotional suppression are safer. Expressing feelings just brings punishment, ridicule, or loss of love. Their natural way of connecting and deciding through feelings gets shut down by the urgent need to be rational, strong, correct.
What about emotional neglect?
Similar outcome. If a child's feelings are constantly ignored, dismissed, met with indifference,
Their emotions don't matter?
right, when their cries, their needs, their joys get no response or maybe even a negative one, they learn to suppress them. They default to relying only on what's provable, logical, tangible, because their emotional world is irrelevant or unsafe to share. They prioritize a logical framework just to function in a world that seems indifferent to their heart.
So this natural feeler, forced to suppress their core function, becomes emotionally disconnected, living in a logical but kind of barren landscape.
That's often the internal experience, yeah. Sense of numbness, maybe emptiness. They can struggle to even access their own values, what truly matters to them, what excites them.
Leading to aimlessness.
It can, yeah. A lack of purpose. Difficulty finding deep meaning. And what's really challenging is this suppression can lead to sudden, overwhelming emotional outbursts later.
Like a dam breaking.
Exactly. Buried feelings finally break through, surprising everyone, including themselves, with their intensity. Then comes the shame, the confusion, because it contradicts the logical persona they've built.
And externally, how might this forced thinker appear?
They might seem cold, overly rational, maybe even robotic, often unintentionally.
Critical of others' emotions, too.
Yeah, that's common. Projecting the criticism they received onto others, their logic becomes this brittle defense, not a flexible tool. It's used to push away uncomfortable feelings, their own and others, creating barriers, not bridges. They might struggle with empathy not because they lack it inherently, but because emotions have been coded as dangerous or weak.
Okay, now the reverse. The forced feeler. A natural thinker compelled to express feelings. So someone whose core is logic is forced to prioritize emotions.
Right. Usually happens when the child's safety or acceptance depends on their ability to manage other people's emotions.
Ah, like the parentification we talked about earlier.
Exactly. Parentification or deep enmeshment. The child learns, implicitly or explicitly, their main job is keeping a parent happy or stable, maintaining family peace.
So their own logical needs get pushed aside.
Completely secondary. Maintaining relational harmony at any cost becomes the priority. They have to become super attuned to emotional cues, anticipating needs, smoothing conflict, constantly doing emotional labor, sacrificing their own logical framework for the family's emotional, often dysfunctional needs.
And in volatile homes.
Also significant, the child becomes an expert emotional barometer, constantly tuning in others' feelings, moods, energy shifts.
To predict outbursts.
Yeah, to predict and navigate potential explosions, de-escalate, keep themselves safe. Their natural ability to analyze logically, apply principles gets totally sidelined. They develop this acute emotional radar, this hypervigilance to the emotional climate, which is often chaotic and illogical itself.
So the split here. A natural thinker, prioritizing logic, is forced to prioritize others' feelings, often over their own truth or fairness. That must create deep frustration, feeling like they're betraying themselves.
Absolutely. Internally, there's often deep resentment, profound frustration at the perceived illogic, the irrationality of the emotional demands on them.
Cynical about emotions.
Can become very cynical about relationships, about emotions generally, seeing them as chaotic, manipulative, illogical burdens rather than avenues for real connection. Their natural urge is to solve problems logically, find objective solutions, but they're stuck navigating this irrational, overwhelming, draining emotional world, constantly pushing against their own wiring.
And how does that frustration show up externally?
Well, they might engage in a lot of people-pleasing, trying to meet emotional needs they don't really get or feel, but doing it feeling exhausted and totally inauthentic, performing emotional labor that isn't theirs.
Trying to fix feelings with logic.
Often, yeah. Which can come across as dismissive or uncaring, because they genuinely don't know how else to engage effectively with emotion. They feel trapped in social situations, demanding this emotional labor, finding it draining and, honestly, pointless from their perspective, leading to this quiet resentment simmering underneath an agreeable surface.
Okay, wow. We've reached the final dichotomy, judging J versus perceiving P. This is about lifestyle orientation, right? How we approach the outer world.
Exactly. Judgers tend to prefer structure, planning, closure, decisions made, things wrapped up, clear paths. Perceivers prefer flexibility, spontaneity, keeping options open. thriving on adaptability, responding as life unfolds.
Bland versus flow, maybe.
That's a decent simplification. It's our fundamental approach to organization, decisions, responding to the environment. And yes, trauma can force a drastic, often agonizing shift here too.
Let's start with the force judger, a natural perceiver, spontaneous, flexible, compelled to express judging traits. So, a free spirit forced into rigid control. How?
This is a really common response to chaos.
Yeah.
Unpredictability, instability. Think of a home with addiction, severe mental illness, constant instability, where there's zero external structure, no safety, no consistency.
So the child creates their own.
They have to.
Yeah.
To feel any sense of safety or control, they impose rigid order on the few things they can control. Their routines, their belongings, their plans for the next hour, even their own body, their own reactions. It's this almost desperate act of imposing internal order, building tiny islands of predictability in a huge sea of chaos.
What about neglect leading to this?
Definitely. Profound neglect, especially when it forces premature responsibility. If no one else is providing structure or guidance,
The child has to do it themselves.
right, they have to plan their meals, their day, manage everything out of sheer necessity. This isn't a comfortable preference for order. It's forced self-reliance, creating rigid, anxious, exhausting structures. A constant battle to impose predictability where none exists outside.
So the split is intense. A natural perceiver, thriving on flow, develops this rigid, anxious relationship with structure. Control isn't about efficiency, it's about managing anxiety.
Exactly right. Internally, they feel immense, almost crippling anxiety when things deviate from their rigid plan. The need for control isn't about healthy organization like a natural judger. It's about desperately holding back this perceived tidal wave of fear and chaos.
Feeling trapped by their own rules.
Often, yeah, a deep internal resistance to the very structures they impose. Feeling imprisoned by their own coping mechanisms, building a cage for safety. It's a constant, exhausting battle between their natural desire for flow and their learned need for rigidity.
And externally, how does that look?
They might appear obsessive, intensely perfectionistic, remarkably inflexible. Their planning, which should bring ease, is often a huge source of stress.
Small changes cause big reactions.
Disproportionate emotional responses, yeah.
Huh.
A meltdown over something seemingly minor, because that loss of control taps right into deep trauma responses, threatening the fragile order they built to feel safe. They cling to rules and routines, not out of preference, but desperate need.
Okay, final dynamic. The forced perceiver. A natural judger craving closure, predictability, compelled to express, perceiving traits. Stuck in flux when they want resolution. That sounds awful.
It is, on a really deep level. This usually comes from an overly rigid, authoritarian, or intensely punitive environment.
Like,
A home where every move is controlled, every decision scrutinized, any deviation punished harshly.
so making a decision is dangerous.
Incredibly dangerous. The child learns the only safe way is to stay flexible, non-committal, keep options open, avoid making the wrong choice and facing severe punishment. Their natural drive for closure, for decidedness, gets crushed by this overwhelming fear of mistakes, of being wrong, of the consequences.
So a natural judger, wanting closure and predictability, is deeply unsettled by being unable to plan or trust structures, leaving them in constant tension, perpetual waiting,
And the internal experience is often debilitating analysis paralysis.
afraid to choose.
Terrified because they've been punished for choices before.
Yeah.
They live in this constant state of unresolved tension, anxiety from the lack of closure, can't move forward. Their inner world is just chaos. Open tabs, nothing finished, nothing decided. They yearn for resolution, a clear path, but they're paralyzed by fear of choosing wrong. Immense internal anguish.
And how does that paralysis show up externally?
They might look incredibly indecisive, passive, prone to extreme procrastination. But remember, it's not a joyful, spontaneous flexibility.
It's fear-based.
Exactly. A fear-based inability to commit. They might even resent others for making decisions, for having that freedom, while being totally unable to do it themselves. Caught in this frustrating cycle. Externally looking laid back maybe, but internally wrestling with huge anxiety and a yearning for resolution they can't reach. Avoiding leadership, deadlines, responsibility, all to avoid the terror of choosing.
Wow. This has been incredibly profound, a really illuminating deep dive into how trauma shapes us.
It's complex territory.
It is, but bringing it back to the main message, understanding these splits isn't just interesting, it really feels like the crucial first step towards healing, towards self-acceptance.
Absolutely. Illuminating those hidden protective parts, acknowledging their story.
And it's so important, as you said, to remember these expressed traits aren't flaws, not things to be ashamed of.
Not at all. They are brilliant adaptive strategies developed for survival. They serve a vital, life-preserving purpose. They're testaments to resilience, to ingenuity, to protecting oneself.
Right. So the goal isn't to just get rid of them because they were essential.
Exactly. The
Sure.
deeper work is about healing the underlying trauma, addressing the root causes.
And when that happens, when internal safety grows,
Then the need for these rigid defenses lessens. They can start to relax their grip remarkably.
and that's where the integration happens.
So that's where the magic happens, yeah. As safety is established internally, those forced expressions of the survival mechanisms can soften, relax,
Allowing the natural self to emerge more.
allows the natural preferences, the authentic core self, to emerge and integrate in a healthier, more flexible, more authentic way. It's a journey towards wholeness, inner harmony, that feeling of finally being truly authentically yourself, all parts integrated.
We really hope this deep dive helps you, listening, to reflect on these patterns. Maybe you recognize something in yourself with new understanding. Or maybe you can see others through a new lens of compassion.
Yeah, that insight can be so powerful.
Giving you tools to navigate your own landscape and the dynamics around you with more clarity, more empathy, more grace.
And maybe a final thought to ponder as you go about your day.
Please.
True strength, maybe the deepest resilience, isn't about rigidly sticking to one persona, natural or expressed. It's in the freedom to integrate both, your innate essence and the wisdom gained from those adaptive strategies.
Bringing it all together.
Yeah. What might that integrated, authentic, flexible self look like for you holding these insights?
That's a powerful question to sit with. Thank you. This has been incredible.
My pleasure. Important conversations to have.
Absolutely. And thank you, everyone, for joining us on this deep dive into trauma's veil. We're so grateful for your time, your presence, and genuinely your continued support. The likes, shares, comments, they all mean a lot.
They really do.
We'll be back soon with another deep dive into the endlessly fascinating world of human experience.